Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
So hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of What's the Point? And I've got to tell you that I am really excited about today's guest. He's a man that I met probably 4 years ago, maybe 5. And I heard him after he gave a talk at an event that we'll talk about a little bit more. But ever since that time, I've known that I had an attraction to the spirit of this man and to the knowledge of this man. So to have him as a guest today is truly an honor and a pleasure. Dr. Charlie Cartwright. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. It's awesome to be here, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Well, I look forward to it. Let me start by helping out some people to better understand who you are. Dr. Charlie, as he goes by, is the founder of People Success Labs. And as a part of that, he created the People Success Formula. And the People Success Formula is built on over 3 decades of work that Charlie has done, research that he's done on what drives human behavior. And that is fascinating. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Prior to devoting his full-time efforts to the creation of the People Success Labs, Charlie spent over 20 years in corporate America. We'll talk a little bit about that. He grew up in the greater Kansas City area on the Kansas side, and maybe now you're on the Missouri side. But I do know without a doubt that you are a happy, proud, ecstatic fan of the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome and congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a story behind that one. When we won, I think the last time we won, I was like 5 years old, and then we won again, and I made a joke that it was the sign of the apocalypse. That we won the Super Bowl. Now I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Well, it's let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm a New Orleans Saints fan. I went to the first game they ever played, and the first game they played was against the then Los Angeles Rams. And the first play from scrimmage was a 102-yard kickoff return for a touchdown by the Saints. And we were sure we were going to the Super Bowl. And it took another 35 years. And just like you, as I sat there with my son, when the clock ticked down, it was, the ice water in hell is ready because it has frozen over.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's amazing. We were a long-suffering fan base here. And so to have our Royals win, just 5-6 years ago, and then to follow that up with our Chiefs, I'm good now. So
well, good. Well, here I'll age myself a little bit, because New Orleans is home for me, and I was at the Super Bowl that the Kansas City Chiefs won in New Orleans, and with Hank Stram coaching them, I believe.
Wow.
And I was selling programs.
Wow. That's amazing. So
this gray hair comes honestly. So, hey, let's get into a little bit something other than sports. It's not everyone that tunes in is interested in sports, but I want to read a quote from you, because I think it really sums up the essence of what you do. And it says, the common denominator in practically every meaningful challenge in life is people. Once you understand what motivates and drives people, the possibilities for achievement are endless. And that's a quote of this man I'm talking to now. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's something that I just came to understand some years ago. I was really curious. I've always been a curious person, and I was working for a company, and I'd been with UPS for a decade and had a lot of success. I've been with FedEx for a decade and had a lot of success. And so now I'm working for an insurance brokerage firm that's pretty good size, the largest privately held insurance brokerage firm in the world. And I was having some success again. And I remember a couple people saying that I was getting lucky and that people just like you. And so that's why. And so I was disappointed that had that thought. But then I also was curious, like, well, why have I been successful? Am I lucky, or Or are there some things that I'm doing that everybody should do? And then are there some things I'm doing that I need to stop? And then are there some things I don't even know about that I should incorporate in my strategies? So that kind of set me on this journey of really dialing in this research, because I had a ton of research, but it was just interesting things that I found along the way. But now I got focused because I said, hey, if I can figure this out, if I can create this formula, then that's teachable and it's duplicatable, and I can help other people in this space. And every place I've been, the common denominator of what I've seen in every challenge is people, right? And so when we can understand that, everything else frees up so much better. But a lot of organizations or leaders struggle because they haven't figured out the people aspect of the equation. And if we're talking work comp, productivity, we could be talking safety, we could be talking sales, you name it, quality, it still all comes back to people. But somehow, as human beings, we skip past that and we look at processes and, okay, we want to incentivize all these things, but we really don't look closely at the human beings, why they do what they do, and then how we can better connect with them to achieve the best results. And so that's how that all came about for me.
Well, that's fascinating. So another quote that I've heard you say is people tend to walk past Clark Kent looking for Superman,
That's one of my
which is brilliant.
It's one of my favorite quotes, and it's so true, Bill, because a lot of times greatness doesn't look like we think it. We think it that should, right, or would. And so we can walk past these people that they're just humble and they just look very unassuming. But if we really look into what they do and accomplish every day, it's amazing. And so now all of a sudden we get our Clark Kents involved, in critical areas, and they can even do more because we're recognizing not what's on the outside, but actually what's on the inside, and looking at what they're actually achieving, not what their potential is, what are they actually doing.
Right.
And so that's again, I see that all the time. Is I have a person on one hand that has all these credentials and their results are not there. Then I have this other person that doesn't have the credentials, but their results are off the chart. And they're getting ignored. And so I kind of made it when I was at FedEx. I had a lot of autonomy, FedEx Ground, in that, UPS was a company that had been around since 1907. So they weren't really open to you telling them a lot of new things. Hey, we know how to do it. You just follow the instructions. But now when I go to FedEx Ground, here's a company that only been around since 1985. And so I remember day one, they told me, hey, we've only been around since 85. We don't know everything. There's something please share it. If you have an idea, please share it. And so that's, of course, how they've become the organization that they are right now. And I remember one of the things I prided myself on was finding all of these Clark Kents in the people were just overlooking. She's kind of hard to get along with. Oh, she is? Yeah, she's hard to get along with. Well, look at her numbers. Why is she hard to get along with? Oh, because she's holding you accountable as leaders to do what you're supposed to do. I see. Okay, well, I'm going to promote her, because she's what I need. And if I'm not doing something I need to do, I do need someone to say, hey, Dr. Charlie, I need this from you. I need that from you. So that is one of my favorite quotes, and it's so true.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And so we have a lot of commonalities in our personal beliefs and in our professional approach, and starting with the basis of people. So the core of my work is in branding. And when I talk about branding, very simply, I talk about the value that one provides, whether it's a personal brand or whether it's a company brand. What value are you providing? And does it matter to anyone other than ourselves? So I've come to believe that everyone has some superpower inside of them. Everyone is a hero. It's just a question of how we choose to apply that and how we as leaders can get the most out of people by inspiring them, by motivating them, by teaching them, by holding them accountable, everything you talked about. And in my work in branding, I've come to understand and feel very strongly that the single biggest aspect of any company brand that's the most overlooked is its people, because its people make the brand, and its
Exactly.
people can crash the brand in a heartbeat due to an action, whether it's intended or whether it's unintentional. So talk to me a little bit more about, the whole point of this podcast, What's the Point, is to talk about purpose and finding one's purpose and living in one's purpose. And yours is wrapped obviously around people, helping people. Where did that come from? Where did that burning passion that you have on an everyday basis come from?
That's a great question, Bill. And I have to say that it came from my upbringing and the experiences that I went through. And I grew up in a very challenging household. I had a father that really had a drinking problem. And then also, you were talking about, so I'm dating myself here. And when I started in kindergarten, it was still the 1960s. And so, our country wasn't as evolved socially as it is now. And so, as an African American child growing up in a small Midwestern town, it wasn't always hospitable, for sure. So I just remember how that felt. Okay. I remember how it felt to feel disrespected, or to feel threatened, or to feel disapproved of. Right. And then as I became an adult, when I would experience those things in the workplace, it brought back all those memories. So I remember thinking to myself, if I'm ever the boss, if I'm ever a leader of a team, I'm never going to treat people like this. I had all these things in my mind. And so when I got my first promotion at UPS, my whole game plan was I went home, I remember, and made this list of all the things that had happened. Uh, I kind of felt like that experience from leaders that I didn't really like, and I said, I'm
Yeah.
going to do the opposite of that. That was my first format, and of course, I thought I was, and I was great, having great results, and I thought I was this great boss. Little did I know, tip of the iceberg. I didn't really understand a lot of things, but in comparison to what I had experienced, I was this great leader, and uh, and so that really started it for me, because it's so important for me that people have a great quality of life. And in the workplace, as leaders, if we're not treating our people well, we can really negatively impact their quality of life, because they go home disappointed, down, and frustrated, maybe even angry. Then they go home to their family. Okay. And so some of that negativity is going to show up in their household, and that's not good. And so I want leaders to go home. I want employees to go home every day and feel like, hey, I did a great thing today. I helped my company grow, my organization grow. I'm part of this team, and I'm making a living for my family. Now they come home and their attitude is really good. Where my father, his organization, I don't think it was very evolved. And so I'm not excusing his behavior
Mhm.
by any stretch of imagination, but I think when he had a bad day at work, he came home and took it out on me. Okay. And so he was responsible. However, he had help. And so I think that for me, that's just so important, because as a little boy, I remember looking at my dad coming in the door and going, what's wrong? I was wondering what was wrong with him.
Mhm.
What's wrong? I didn't understand. And so I know when I've had a group of leaders in a room that have maybe a tougher style, they call it old school,
Yeah.
and I speak to them on these terms and say, hey, because they have no problem being tough on some employee. But when I explain to them that you're actually hurting their family when you mistreat them, man, you can see the faces change. Like, no one wants to hurt any kids,
Yeah.
right? And they're right. So they're like, oh, I'm really hurting their kid. Yeah, you're hurting their children if you're sending them home feeling less than about themselves. So it just became a passion for me over time. And I love it when people feel good about themselves, because then they can go home and be the best mother that they can be. They can be the best father. They can be the best brother. They can be the best husband, son. They can be their best. And so we get the whole human being at work, not just the 9 to 5 version. And so if we help them become better, then that impacts every aspect of their life, and that's going to show up in the workplace as well.
That is just so good. That is just so good. And what you mentioned there, Charlie, is really something that all of us can and should embrace, and that is that you had difficulties growing up. Some were external, some were internal to the family, some I'm sure were so internal to Dr. Charlie.
Right.
But going through all of those situations helped make you the guy that you are today. And so tell me a little bit more about that, because I know you realize that. And I just want you to share how that also has helped shape who you are.
Yeah, that's an important one too, Bill, because as a younger man, I was I had a chip on my shoulder for sure. That's probably not accurate. It was more like a boulder on my shoulder carrying around. And I had a lot of resentment for how I was raised, and the things that I was put through, and a lot of anger behind that. And then as I continued to work to be a better human being and evolve, then all of a sudden, to your point, I realized that, with my dad, and I make that distinction, he's my dad, not my father. I
Wow.
distinguish that. Okay. So he's my dad, you know, um, that I'll never, hold him in high regard. However, he had to be that guy for me to be this guy,
Ah,
because that lack of compassion, that lack of empathy, that lack of understanding, that lack of flexibility that I experienced, like, I'm not going to do those things. I'm
yeah.
going to be different. And so it did mold me in that. And then I also know, and this is what's so important when I share this, when we get deeper into discussion with leaders, they have this team made up of all these different backgrounds. You can't assume that that man or woman that works for you has had any support growing up, has had any love, any respect, any compassion growing up. And so I remember explaining this to my leaders that work for me at FedEx. They have to understand that there's certain people, the most stable part of their day is when they come to work. Okay. And if we take that away from them, they can go down quick. Okay. So we don't know what's going on, unless they tell us. We don't know what's going on at home. And so that stability, that belonging, that care, that structure that the workplace can provide is so valuable and critical. And there's some folks that they don't know anything about savings and 401k. They found that
Mm,
out from the workplace.
yeah.
Health and nutrition, I need to manage stress. Well, they found that out at work. And so it's bigger than the job. But when we really help the whole person, you're talking about a loyal employee, a hardworking employee that believes in the vision. They believe in what we say that it's on the website is true when we treat them this way. And so we can't assume that all these things that we maybe acquired growing up that they got it, because there's a good chance that they didn't get some of that, or there's some gaps. And
Yeah.
as a great leader, we see those gaps and we can help them. I remember there was a gal, one of my people at FedEx, and she was a tiny little gal, and she was one of my best package handlers. She was very great, did a great job. I don't know how she lifted those packages, because I don't know that she weighed 100 pounds. And at that time, the weight limit was 70. She'd use her knee
Wow.
and lift these
Yeah.
packages. And I remember she was a single mom. And so I'd always made a point that all my people, I never went, I try to, you have a large operation. I think when I had my inbound sort, I had like 66 people. You can't talk to 66 people every day. That's kind of impossible. But every other day is possible. So I kept a list and I made sure that I got to everyone
Mm,
every other day. Well, when you do that, brief conversation, now you've got a finger on the pulse. You know what's going on. And I remember this one week she was just off, just off. So that Friday, I said, and we were Tuesday through Saturday operations. So that Friday, I said, hey, I want to see you in my office after the sort. She's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I said, that's fine. I want to see you after the sort. So she sits down and I say, hey, what's going on? Nothing. You're not yourself this week. I know something's not right. What's going on? Nothing. And I remember saying, listen, I can't help you unless you tell me. Boom. She just burst into tears. And she's like, I'm a single mother. I just need help. I just need help. No one's helping me. I said, well, what can I help you with? She says, well, I'm trying to get my education and I need student loans. And I sent in my my FAFSA and I haven't heard back. I was like, okay, bring your paperwork tomorrow morning and we'll look at it. Well, I'm 10 years into my college career, so I
Yeah.
know a little bit about
Yeah.
FAFSA. And I don't know about the system now, but back then, if you made a mistake, it wouldn't send you a note saying you made a mistake. It would just freeze your application. It wouldn't go forward. We made that one fix in her application. She got student loans. She was eligible for grants. Like by Monday, she got all this information, and she was just so grateful. And that to me is a result of just what I went through and this understanding what it feels like to not have that support or understanding. And so anytime that I can help someone else get a little bit of that, it's a big deal. So who knows what she's doing right now, but I guarantee you, wherever she is, she's successful. She's finished her degree. She probably has her master's degree. Guarantee you.
Well, I would think that another thing I would make a wager on is that she has some really warm thoughts towards you, because of the doors that you opened for her, and the power of sharing our knowledge, the power of caring about other people enough to not to nurture them, to help them learn. It is so rewarding, and that's one of the things we have in common. So when I hear you talk, I think a lot about the book The Go Giver, which Bob Berg and John David Mann wrote, and that's why I'm a certified Go Giver coach and speaker, because the whole premise of the Go Giver is it's not about just charity. It's not charity at all. It's about constantly, consistently providing value to the person that we're there to serve. And that starts with, what do they need? What do they want? What do I have that can enrich them? What's the point of my value in their life? And to hear that story of that young lady, now, not only has she probably progressed in her education and her quality of life, I would love to meet her and talk to her about her family and the
Right.
impact that's had. And it started with you being an opening and caring enough leader. You know what? To show love.
Right. It's a big deal. And like I said, you just can't assume that people are getting that when they leave the place of business. And to me, that's why leadership is such a huge responsibility, because it's more than just making widgets or whatever it is that you do. That's a human being that's in your charge. And as a leader, you're there to support and uplift them and help them be the best they can be, whatever that is. And for me, Bill, that also meant, and this flies into the face of a lot of common thought, but if that person didn't want to, this is not their ultimate destination, why shouldn't we help them achieve it?
Yeah.
And so I would definitely help people. Hey, this is not what I want to do. Well, let's sit down. What does that look like? Well, here's what I want to do. We put a plan together. I said, well, hey, let's put this plan together. So you're going to leave in 18 months. That's fine. And so I'm going to help you at the end of it. You do a great job for me. You're going to be able to use me as a reference. I'm going to give you flying colors. Here's what I need in the meantime from you. And I'm telling you, you get a motivated person. And then when it's time to go, it's time to go. A good friend of mine, actually, that was a situation. He worked for me, and and of course we weren't good friends at the time, and that was the thing. He left, got a great job, met his now wife, and we're still friends to this day. But the traditional model would have been, oh, you don't want to work here anymore. I don't know you, and that. But that was not it. And I remember helping him get the next job, and then
Mhm.
that's where he met his now wife, and then he's went on and done some great things, and he's doing very well. However, it's because I'm not selfishly thinking, well, if you don't work for me, I can't help you. No, I'm going to
Yeah.
help you. But in exchange for that, wow, I got such a great employee for the rest of his time. And then when it was time for him to go, he left. But then what did he do? Well, if he ran into someone, well, hey, you need to go work for Dr. Trey.
Mm.
He'll take care of you, right? And so that's the key
Yeah.
of it all, is just like you said, just being giving of yourself and really adding value in whatever way that is for another human being, because people, they remember those things for
Yeah.
the rest of their life.
And that's why it's all about people. I mean, everything. And when you told that story, it popped into my mind, the anecdote about the uh, CFO saying to the to the CEO, "Why are you spending all this money to educate and advance people? What if you spend that money and they leave us?" And he said, "What if we don't spend the money and they stay?"
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so
It's
it's
powerful.
yeah, it's all a matter of perspective. So with my work, I've developed the 5 pillars of branding, which are uh, leadership and behavior, communication, influence, and team. And they're separate, yet they all merge and mold in together. So tell me a little bit more about your work, please, with behavior. And I know you've got 35 years worth of research, Dr. Charlie, and tell me more about what we can all learn about behavior.
So it's interesting. And this is a quote. I bet I've shared this quote 20 times in the last 6 weeks. It's a Dr. Seuss quote. And he said, sometimes the problems are complex and the solutions are simple.
Ah,
That was Dr. Seuss, right? And it's so true, Bill. And so I'll give you this one piece, and it's actually it's the first piece of the people success formula, and it's care. Okay. And it was a Willis Towers Watson study. They found the number one determinant of whether or not, so the one number one predictor of whether or not an employee chose to be engaged in their work, because engagement is a choice, right? The number one predictor of that is whether he or she believes that their manager or their supervisor genuinely cares about them as a human
hmm,
being. And so the disengaged employees, only 18% believe that, right? And so basically about 2/3 of our country, I want to say it's right at 66% are disengaged. And I think it's 34% are engaged now. And then the engaged employees, 96% believe that.
hmm.
And that's so fundamental to everything we're talking about. And so teaching leaders, okay, here's how you demonstrate that. Because I remember when I first started speaking on this, I have 10 principles, and the 10 principles have stood the test of time. But when I was in its infancy, I only had the 3 principles that are still part of the formula. So I remember the first time I was in Nebraska, actually, and I taught the 3 principles. And I was so proud, and I showed all this data and everything. And then when I submitted all the feedback forms, when I read them, about half of them said, "Hey, Dr. Charlie, we believe everything that you said is true. You didn't tell us how to do it.
Mm,
You didn't tell us how to show people we care. You said it's
yeah.
important that we care. Well, how do we show them?" And so I was kind of blown away that, hey, that's not common knowledge. But then if it was, we wouldn't have a lot of the issues and challenges that we have today,
That's
right?
true.
So now when I teach, I give examples. Here's the things you can do to show you really care, and it'll really, and you need to care. And if you don't care about your people, if you're really looking at them as numbers, and then you're really truly not a leader. You shouldn't be in a leadership position if you don't care about people. You're not a fit. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how much education. If you don't care about people, you're not a leader. Okay, it's that simple. So it's really important to care about people genuinely, because they know the difference. They do know the difference, that that genuine care that crosses racial barriers, age barriers, gender, you name it. It crosses all those lines, because that's something that resonates with every human being. And so the things that I teach cross all those barriers, overcome those barriers, because it's it's really part of our DNA. We're wired to respond to people that genuinely care about us.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people are people.
Yep.
It's really kind of simple if we look at it that way. And to hear to hear what you just said about having all of this knowledge, but not not clicking that people may not understand the how. How do I do it? That's powerful. And caring enough to say, and to accept that, as opposed to, well, why don't you know? Or you should know, or I'll get someone in here that does know. That kind of thinking. And here's a little self-disclosure. I had a career at Anheuser-Busch, and in my last position there, I was put in charge of managing some people. And frankly, I was a horrible manager. Um, I, I just did a blog post on that the other day, as a matter of fact. But it's like you talked about, getting self-awareness, looking at what we've done and analyzing it, finding a mentor, finding someone to guide us, finding people that'll tell us how to do it. So all of my work now over the past 16 years has been based on my own journey of realizing I was weak in all 5 of the areas that I now call my pillars. And it's like you said about your dad, you know, for me to be the man I am today, I had to be the man that I was when I was a bad manager. And it's unfortunate because I did have negative impact on a lot of people. And it really took away from the skill and talent that I brought to the table. But I didn't put people first. So I just appreciate so much your effort. And that's why, Dr. Charlie, you are internationally known, internationally sought after, and probably, I'm going to assume, perhaps have even had more doors open for you in the last 6 or 7 months, because every one of us has shifted to much more virtual. Tell me how that's impacted you and your business, and how you can carry your message.
Right. Yeah, that was wow. This has been, and for many people, it's been hugely uh, just a devastating shift. That because my business was 100% face to face, and then all of a sudden that's not possible.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, oh wow, what am I gonna do? And you get about, I don't know, 10 minutes to feel sorry for yourself, and then you start figuring it out. and and I remember the first week of the lockdown going to this virtual format where I got this professional Zoom license and figured all this technology out. Of course, I had help. A buddy of mine figured it out and then told me, this is the one you want. Because we looked at several things, and I said, hey, I just need to be able to click. It needs to be simple. I don't want to read a manual. It's got to work, and it's got to be stable. And so he found it for me, which I'm really grateful. But then what happened was, just because I was virtual doesn't mean my clients were virtual, doesn't mean my prospects were virtual. And
True.
so it's taken them a while. So just in the last probably 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, have now starting to get inquiries about, hey, we're doing this virtual conference, we're doing this virtual thing. So that's really great. But also what it's done for me is I switched my platform from a 2-dimensional, hey, here's a great quote with an image, and then I would speak about it, to making these videos, the Dashcam Wisdom videos. And the Dashcam Wisdom videos are great because they hear me speaking, and it's a very simple format. However, those videos get forwarded. And then I found the perfect time frame, about 3 to 5 minutes, that's the window. If you go 6 minutes, people aren't going to listen. Okay, they're not going to listen. And it takes you, to me, usually about 3 minutes to give something a valuable nugget, So that's really expanded my reach. And to your point, all over the world. So, and I'm sleeping, there's people in Australia consuming my content, people in Germany consuming my content, all over the world. And then of course they're forwarding those things, and that always gets the attention of the right people, who then reach out and say, hey, we'd like to have a deeper discussion about you, or get some curious, and then they can go and check out my profile and say, hey, okay, this is consistent, and let's have a conversation. So that's actually exciting. I see the possibilities are much bigger because virtual, because I see a time in 2021 Well, I may be in 4 cities in the same day and never leave my office.
Yeah.
Where in the physical world, that's not possible. So you lose the constraints that way. And so now all of a sudden, because before, if conferences tend to pick the same days because of time of year and all that,
Hmm.
where before you had to pick the conference, couldn't be
Right.
at both. Now you can be at both. And so that's really exciting. And if you're adding value, then you're going to have opportunity.
Well, that's amazing. So I mentioned at the start that I was first exposed to you when you spoke um, at what is a St. Louis-based organization called the Warrior Transition Network, which is devoted. It's since evolved a little bit, but at the time it was focusing on helping our U.S. veterans segue into civilian life. And you gave a talk, and mainly what resonated with me, the message was fantastic, but the way you told the story, you're a brilliant storyteller. And when I discovered you on LinkedIn, and not discovered you, but when I discovered your dashboard wisdom videos, so I just spent the last month in Dubai, and I was watching you every day. So I
Oh,
mean, you were
nice.
sleeping, and you were getting looked at by me.
That's
Um,
awesome.
3 to 5 minutes. You can give a nugget in 30 seconds. To give a nugget that people are going to care about and have and receive an impact from, 3 to 5 minutes to set it up and just tell it the way you do it is brilliant. So how'd you stumble onto that formula?
That's a great question. And so I'm a Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and so I
Hmm.
follow his content. I'm getting so busy now with things I'm doing that I haven't been able to tune into him as often. But one of the things he talked about a lot was listening to the market, right? Listening to your customers, listening to your prospects, really listening. And so people were telling me that, hey, you need to start making videos. I was hearing this, but I was really afraid, frankly, to make the videos. And then I had one of my cousins works in Atlanta, Georgia for a pretty good sized social media marketing firm. And he was talking to me, saying, hey, Doc, you need to start making videos. And so at the time, I was talking about actually driving all the way to St. Louis to use a studio time. And that's like a 4 hour, 3.5 hour drive.
Hmm.
And so I was telling him, well, I'm talking with a friend of mine, and for studio time, and I'm working on that. And he said, listen, he said, we've got a state of the art studio, and we've got 8 camera angles and all this professional sound. And he said, there's an 11-year-old girl in Atlanta sitting in her bedroom on her bed, kicking our butt. He said, it's not about your studio. He said, it's content. Okay. He said, it's content. I said, well, where should I make him? He said, shoot him. He literally said, shoot him in your car. That's what he told me. Shoot him in your car. So I was like, okay. So I remember hitting that button the first time, and I made maybe 2 videos. And then the third video, someone said in the comments, oh, I'm loving this Dr. Charlie's Dashcam Wisdom. So the next time I made a recording, I made a joke about it. Well, hey, here's
Yeah.
another version of Dashcam Wisdom, and people just love that. So then the other thing about it, Bill, a friend of mine had breakfast with me, and he says, hey, I want to make a suggestion. I said, sure. He said, man, I love your Dashcam Wisdom. He said, I like Dr. Charlie in a polo shirt or a button up. He said, I'm not liking the t-shirts. I said, okay, I guess that's not professional because it's just in a t-shirt. I just wanted to be relaxed. So I put a polo shirt on, and people were like, no, what are you doing? Where's the t-shirt? Don't you know I tune in and to see what t-shirts you wear? So now, Bill, the t-shirts are a thing. And
Yeah.
people are sending me t-shirts now.
Hmm.
I got 3 last week, and I got 1 in the mail yesterday. And so that's really fun. And then a lot of times with the t-shirt, I'll incorporate that into the message, whatever it says.
Yeah.
And so, but
Well,
again, listening to the market.
yeah. So watching you, I was thinking I need to get some T-shirts made with the "What's the Point" logo on the front. And when I do,
Yes,
I'll send you one. What are you, an XL or a 2X?
I'm an XL. I'm an
Okay.
XL.
Well,
Yeah. And
I've put that on my list.
I'll wear it, and I'll give you a shout out. And so
Well,
it's been
that's
fun.
yeah,
And it's great. So yeah, that was just all of just listening. I'd love to
yeah.
say I had this genius idea, but it was just really listening to the market.
Well, it's kind of like what you said about the Clark Kents. It's sometimes the best ideas are the ones that are so obvious we can't see them.
Yes.
And so here's what you do really well. So I want everyone listening here that's saying, well, Dr. Charlie does it, I can do it. Yes, you can. However, make sure of two things. And Dr. Charlie, your videos do this. First, make sure they're in focus and that you're in the frame. And you figure that out because you're real consistent. You've got to have the camera holder on the dash or something. But the other thing that so many people fall short on is the sound. The quality of the sound is there. So yeah, we don't need studios, but we do need to make sure the basics. People want to see it and they want to hear it. So that's what you have to focus on, and then have the message. Let me ask you two more things because we're running just a little bit long, and I so much appreciate your time. I know you're a voracious reader. What book are you reading now? What would you share with us to grab a copy of?
Wow. So this is Joseph Murphy, Power of the Subconscious Mind. That's a powerful book. I think that one has got to be on your list of to-dos. Is Power of the Subconscious Mind. And then there's a recent Harvard Business Review article on kindness. And I love the Harvard Business Review because they'll do a whole magazine on it. And so I misspoke. It's actually Time, Power of Kindness.
Okay.
And the whole magazine is dedicated, a special edition is dedicated to that. And so kindness is king. And I don't care what we're doing in our lives, the business world, even if we have to have a difficult conversation with another individual, that can still be done with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so much more traction, so much more respect, so much better results when we do things with kindness.
Yeah. So the phrase brutal honesty is horrible because honesty doesn't have to be brutal. Mm-mm. One final question for you, and this one shouldn't be a surprise based on the podcast you're on. So Dr. Charlie, what's the point?
The point is to just really make a difference every day, a positive difference in the lives of other human beings. So that looks different every day. Sometimes I held the door for someone. Sometimes I let someone go in line. Other times it's, sharing a positive phrase or notion. But to me, the point about all of this, and this is a Dalai Lama quote, actually, he said that the purpose for human beings is to help other human beings. That's our primary purpose in life. And he said, if we can't hurt them, if we can't help them, at least don't hurt them.
Right.
And so that really resonates with me. And being kind is a great way to display that on a daily basis.
Well, Dr. Charlie Cartwright, again, thank you for your time and your wisdom so that people can follow you. I think most of your online presence might be on LinkedIn, right? Dr.
Yes.
Charlie Cartwright on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I think you have a YouTube channel now for your Dashboard Wisdom.
Yeah, Dashcam
Wisdom. Look at you.
Dashcam Wisdom. Yeah, the YouTube channel. It's got over 50 videos. Well, as of this afternoon, it'll be over 60 videos. I've got some to download. But yeah, Dashcam Wisdom on YouTube. So those are the two places to follow my content.
And if nothing else, people should follow you to up their t-shirt game because yours is powerful. It is powerful. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you all for listening. Follow Dr. Charlie Cartwright because he is as wise as he is friendly and kind. Thank you again for your time today, my friend. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.